That didn't go at all like I thought it would. Again, if I'm wrong on this, guys, please tell me. These saws notoriously are dirty all of the time. Welcome to the Okie Woodsman channel. My name is Joe, and if you're new here, we're glad to have you. Thank you to all of the amazing subscribers and community we have down in the comment section, on Facebook, and everywhere else. I really thank you. What do you think about the setup here on the wall? This is not done. What I'm doing here is just kind of working with what I've got. I've got some things in the works potentially, but I wanted to make this something that was attractive looking, something that was useful, and also applicable to what we're doing today, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and make some changes to this MS460 and my 395. We'll talk about those things and we'll see if it's something that you might wanna do yourself. It's so nice to come out to a shop that's clean, organized, and I've been really working on that to make sure it stays that way. I recently had a video where we talked about these foam filters and where I got them from. TriStar Supply, LLC, online. They've been generous enough with the audience to offer 10% off site-wide using the discount code below. Something like this may not be for everyone. And I'm actually not quite sure if it's for this saw, because the 395, as far as I'm aware of, doesn't have a bad filtration system. Husqvarna is quite known for pre-filtering before it gets to the actual filter element itself. This right here can be considered a potential performance upgrade, and it could also still reduce the amount of fines that could go into the intake. I just want to take a look here, kind of see how this is going to fit. Let me see if this fits back on top of it here. Everybody, would you run this with the cover back on it or with no plastics? Now, running it without the cover, you do potentially have a risk of damaging this foam element. Certainly in transport, or if the saw takes a tumble or whatnot. You know, while I'm in here, I can go ahead and make the repair to this ground wire as well. The kill switch. We're not going to go back in this channel here, and the reason why is I am losing a little bit of length. But what I will do is I'm going to go ahead and follow the route of this green wire right here. And if it was good enough for that one, it ought to be fine for this. Both wires are probably supposed to be down in here, actually, now that I look at it. But let me see if there's anything that can, yeah, there's nothing that can hit it. So we're gonna roll with that for the time being. This is a 60-watt iron. If I'm soldering a lot, I like to have a wet sponge to clean the tip, but this is gonna go extremely quickly. I'm not gonna bother right now. There we go. We're just tinning the wire. There we go. And I will go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and touch this together here. There we are. That has connectivity now. Make sure nothing's going to impede it. There's nothing that's going to hit it. That's going to work for the time being. If I had some liquid electrical tape, that would be pretty good. But realistically, this little bare spot here is really no different than the bare spot in here. Because of the solder, this likely is potentially may break in the future because of rigidity, but if you don't absorb too much solder up into the sheath here, it probably will be okay. Let's see, this actually will fit in here no problem still. So I'm gonna actually go ahead and pop that in there. Pretty good. There we go. It's there, it's out of the way. I think that ought to be fine. I bet you we have a working kill switch now, which that's gonna be a good thing. It is so nice to have an organized shop. This is just a tray I have for soldering. And you know, earlier I was doing a squish test And I knew I had this stuff, you know, on another video some time ago. I knew I had it. I just didn't know where it was. But now that I've organized and gotten in here, then we're good. This is stuff to wick solder off of whatever, whether it be a circuit board or anything. If you have excess solder, you can go ahead and wick it into this braided copper. Pretty cool stuff. But anyway, a bunch of soldering stuff. I do prefer soldering stations over the pencils, and I really dislike the soldering guns, but I have them. I'm not going to throw them away just in case. Let's go ahead and get this filter treated with some oil. I'm going to do it this way. I think it'll work pretty well. Here's the bell raise. This was again purchased by myself through sawsuppliers.com. Bell raise filter oil. So many people say that this is good stuff. I'm going to go with it. It doesn't take all that much to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and massage this in here like this. If you think that there's a better way of doing it, feel free to jump in there in the comment section. I also know that you can go too much with it, but I just want to get a coat on the whole thing. We also don't see anything over in here. This saw right here is not as critical, I do not believe, to have this foam filter on, but that MS460 is. That's also got an opened up exhaust where this one doesn't. This is still stock 100% as far as I'm aware. This one, the filter element will come off of it, the 3D printed base here. May as well make it easier. I've already messed up the outside of the bag, so what the heck was that for, right? Looks like we've got it in there. Here's the Redbeard 3D printed filter cover, or filter base, I should say. Go ahead and make sure that the filter is nice and mushroomed around the whole thing, so we're not providing any leaks anywhere into the saw. I don't know if I like that method. I think honestly, had I just thrown the filters in there, just the foam element, that would have been okay, but this is trash now. Everybody knows that the steel setup is just inferior to really Echo and Husqvarna in terms of pre-filtration. Okay, so again, these 395 filters are, I believe, known to be very, very good and very effective. They do not let a bunch of fines through, from what I know. Share your experience. Simple hose clamp here to tighten onto the throat of the carburetor. Awesome. Ah, man, you got to put this cover on first. Shoot. I bet you that's why that wire was cut. I bet you that switch is bad. We're gonna check and see if there's continuity through the switch, if the switch actually opens or not. Ah. So I've got a bad switch here. That's why that line was cut. Well, I'll go ahead and snip it again, unfortunately. So I gotta put a switch in this thing at some point. And I hate the aftermarket switches. They're just no good. Rather than cut it, I'm gonna go ahead and take out this Allen. I'll stick that backwards, and that way it can't ground to anything anymore. I'm confident. I'm gonna put the cover back on. I think it will. Let's go back outside. I bet you this will start up now. I bet you I've flooded it. All right, everybody let me know. I'm putting the stock cleaner back on it, and the reason why is that one's far too restrictive. I kind of actually wish I would have, and I believe it's far too restricted, possibly because of how much oil's in it. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna wash it out and let's run it raw and see what it's like that. Last thing is I did is I choked it. Oh, it's got gas on it. It probably needs to dry out. I don't think I like this. This thing feels dry. First of all, I want to apologize if I've done that completely wrong, but I can tell you right now that I washed that filter out pretty good with straight gas and blew that air through it. It hardly even smells like gasoline now. It smells like a little bit of fumes, but it doesn't smell, it's not like really wet, okay? So I can tell you right now that when I'm blowing air through this, it pretty well stops up the air chuck. It feels as if I'm blowing through a tiny little restricted hole. I think there's too much foam on that. And I hate to say that because that product was a tester for me, but I can tell you this right now, that I personally, if someone's willing to, if someone can convince me that I've completely done that incorrectly, I will be willing to revisit that. But on this saw here, the 395 filter, I've been told from people that have lots of experience with them, the filters are good. They don't let fines through. There's no reason to do that on this saw here. And I'm questioning whether or not if I even want to mess with it on the steel, to be honest with you. Before I assume that it's no good on the steel, I'm going to go ahead and run this one without it. And then I'm going to go ahead and throw it on while it's running and see if it makes a difference, if it chokes it up. And this one's got like a 1/4 inch of foam on it, so it's not nearly as much foam as the 395 was. This has the stock filter in it as of right now. This one seems to be unaffected by the filter in terms of in a negative way. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this one a shot. That didn't go at all like I thought it would, but it kind of makes sense. What the heck? I'm trying to figure out what that tells us. This is what I think. And please forgive me, Redbeard, I've never dealt with you. If I am misrepresenting the experience on the product, I hope that some people let me know in the comment section. But this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that even without oil, this thing's too restrictive for a stock saw, let alone a ported saw. I think there's too much here. I truly think that once this gets filled with even a light oil coating, I think that without oil this is too restrictive, and the oil's certainly not going to help the air slide by easier. That's all it's to it. That's my perception. Again, I apologize if I'm wrong. Please go down to the comment section, see what people are saying in correction. Now, I will say this, I think there's a huge difference between this filter and this filter. And what that difference is simply volume of foam. We have to suck through a 1 1/8 inch hole or so approximately. We have to suck all of that air through this huge dents. You've got everywhere, you have at least 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch of foam to go through. That's even without the cover on it. So it's able to suck air from all of this area here. You put that cover on it and it's squishing here. You're now only going to pull through the side here. And I have a suspicion it's pulling mostly through here. So on a 395, I personally, I don't know if it's exactly a good idea. I'm not going to put my recommendation against it or for it, but you saw what I experienced. On the 460, these saws notoriously are dirty all of the time. This is what I'm thinking here. Steel saws are notorious for getting chips in the air cleaner. And this setup here is kind of cool factory because you've got this pre-filter that you can kind of pull off and shake off out in the field. And then you've got another filter underneath it. I'm almost wondering that if you're going to be cutting a lot and you do not want to be dealing with filters on a steel chainsaw, again, this is one of my favorite saws to run, but the filter is always blasted. Okay, I cut a tank, probably a tank and a half through this thing, and you should have seen the amount of dust on this when I blew it out earlier. It's crazy. So what I'm thinking is this. If you load this up with dust, you're not going to be able to just tap it out because it's going to be in the oil. I'm going to try this out. I am going to try it out because I have it. I don't know if it's going to breathe necessarily any better than this. If this saw is suddenly feeling lean next time I run it, I'm going to need to give it a little bit more fuel, because if it's sucking more air, it probably needs a little bit more fuel. So this will be a saw that I'm going to need to pay attention to next time I go to run it, and we'll see. I really don't know if I can recommend these filters. And that's just me being truthful. Now, I do want to be clear with you. TriStar Supply did give them to me. I have not seen anyone say anything negative. I heard someone say that they ripped their filter. Again, if I'm wrong on this, guys, please tell me. I am not an expert. I am certainly not a performance expert. But if you are just a guy like me going and buying performance parts, you put this on your saw, I'm not so sure that it's going to do exactly what you wanted it to do. Really. I think my most problematic filters right now is the stock filter on the 562 and my 620. The reason why is the 620 has, unless you put the O-rings in it, it's terrible, and it's just got that flocked, just kind of like a mesh on there, super thin. I think it's kind of hokey. That has a phenomenal filter, but it lets fines in somehow. I don't understand that. And Mitchell was showing that it seems like they loosen up maybe. I don't know. But this saw here stays clean in the intake. It just gets dirty fast. This saw here stays clean in the intake and it doesn't get dirty fast. I think this is my best filtration I have out of any saw currently in my setup. I do need to go ahead and resolve one thing that I haven't done yet on this saw here. And that is, because I'm running the aftermarket cover here, the EXILE, this is an awesome part here available through TriStar Supply. This EXILE cover is phenomenal. I think the performance is fantastic on this saw, but the non-OEM can, the holes don't line up. So, and those are brazed on here. Those are nuts. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and make a little bit of room on the cover here with a grinder, so that way I can put the other two bolts in it. I think that ought to do. And I think that ought to do right there. Now, like I said, I can absolutely recommend this part here. I like it. While we're in here, let's take a look at the piston. I've been running it. Do see one light bit of scoring on the left side there. I can't feel it with the tip of this, but I think there is a defined line there. I'm gonna run it. It has good compression. Still gonna just run it. This is my Meteor piston in here. It doesn't look like anything's getting cooked. Yeah, there is some, I'd say there is a little bit of scoring, actually. It's the first time that's shown up after a little bit of use here. And now keep in mind, this was a cylinder that had a little bit of trouble that I took some sandpaper to. But we're gonna see what happens here when, we're just gonna run it. We're gonna see what happens in the long run here. I don't think it's, oh, let me know your thoughts on that one. So I've gone ahead and opened up these two holes up here. I elongated them so that way the bolts should be able to fit back in. This is the stock muffler. I put the bolts back in it so I wouldn't lose them. I am going to go ahead and put some Loctite on this. Here's the aftermarket cover that I went ahead and stripped. Now this is going into magnesium here. I'm not gonna go too much. Terrified of messing up the magnesium threads. I've started them. All right, finally, bolt cover, exhaust cover is fully covered up. I love this exhaust from EXILE. I did use the diamond bit, and just so you know, the stainless hammered this thing very quickly. This was a pretty good diamond bit for chains, and it's no longer. Last time I ran this saw, I did run it with the carbide chain on it. I really am kind of surprised about the results on that foam filter. I just kind of assumed it'd be kind of a no-brainer, easy swap, and done. Instead, I'm troubleshooting the saw. One of my favorite things to do is to periodically just take a wire brush to the studs. When you start feeling like you can't hand spin on your bar nuts easily, do this. I think you'll save yourself some frustration. It's a lot easier to be able to tighten them up by finger until that last moment. But again, it was just kind of surprising all the way around on that on the foam there. I'm not sure what to think. Yeah, see, that went right on easily. I like that. Though I may not be giving a shining 5-star review on that red beard filter for the $395. That, along with other types of upgrades and aftermarket parts, are available at TriStar LLC. Links down below with a discount, 10% off site-wide. That includes clone saws, just so you know. I appreciate you watching, and please, down below, let me know if you see any issues with what I did today. I'll see you in the next one.